rest in God. I rest in God. I rest in God. This is the day of peace. I rest in God. I rest in God. I rest in God. In Him I have no cares. My tired mind is suddenly made glad. A bird with broken wings begins to sing again. A stream long dry begins to flow again. I rest in God. I rest in God. I rest in God. I rest in God. Well, thank you all so much for joining me today and studying A Course in Miracles. We're studying from the version printed by Foundation for Inner Peace here on April the 18th of 2024. Lesson 109, I rest in God. This lesson is one of those lessons where you don't really have to do anything. It's an easy lesson in that sense, maybe the easiest. And it's my default lesson. What I mean by that is if I'm out and about and I'm doing my lessons for the day and for some reason I can't remember the lesson for the day, but I've got time and I want to do my lesson, but I don't have my card in my pocket, or I can't just quite conjure up what the lesson was, and I don't have time to go get my book, I rest in God. I'll just sit there and rest in God. That's what I mean by my default lesson. I rest in God. We ask for rest today and quietness unshaken by the world's appearances. We ask for peace and stillness in the midst of all the turmoil born of clashing dreams. We ask for safety and for happiness, although we seem to look on danger and on sorrow. And we have the thought that we'll answer our asking with what we request. I rest in God. This thought will bring to you the rest and quiet, peace and stillness, and the safety and the happiness you seek. I rest in God. This thought has power to wake the sleeping truth in you, whose vision sees beyond appearances to that same truth in everyone and everything there is. Here is the end of suffering for all the world, and everyone who ever came and yet will come to linger for a while. Here is the thought in which the Son of God is born again to recognize Himself. I rest in God. He's saying this is the thought that makes us be born again. For all you born again Christians, consider this. Here is the thought in which the Son of God is born again to recognize Himself. You've stepped back and let God lead the way as you what? Rest in Him. I rest in God, completely undismayed. This thought will carry you through storms and strife, past misery and pain, past loss and death, and onward to the certainty of God. There is no suffering it cannot heal. There is no problem that it cannot solve. No problem that it cannot solve. I rest in God. And no appearance but will turn to truth before the eyes of you who rest in God. This is the day of peace. You rest in God. And while the world is torn by winds of hate, your rest remains completely undisturbed. Yours is the rest of truth. Appearances cannot intrude on you. You call to all to join you in your rest, and they will hear and come to you because you rest in God. They will not hear another voice they will not hear another voice than yours, because you gave your voice to God, and now you rest in Him and let Him speak through you. I don't know what to say, God. Well, that doesn't matter. I'm just resting in you. I'm sure if there's something to say that you'll wake me up and tell me what to say. In Him you have no cares and no concerns, no burdens, no anxieties, no pain, no fear of future, and no past regrets. In timelessness you rest, in timelessness you rest. While time goes by without its touch upon you, for your rest can never change in any way at all. Wow, as time goes by. While time goes by without its touch upon you, for your rest can never change in any way at all. You rest today, and as you close your eyes, sink into stillness. Let these periods of rest and respite reassure your mind that all its frantic fantasies were but the dreams of fever that has passed away. Let it be still and thankfully accept its healing. And that word respite, or you can also pronounce it respite, is a short period of rest or relief from something difficult or unpleasant. So, and as you close your eyes, sink into stillness. Let these periods of rest and respite reassure your mind that all its frantic fantasies were but the dreams of fever that has passed away. Let it be still and thankfully accept its healing. No more fearful dreams will come now that you rest in God. No more fearful dreams will come now that you rest in God. Take time today to slip away. Take time today to slip away from dreams and into peace. Each hour that you take your rest today, a tired mind is suddenly made glad. Your tired mind is suddenly made glad. A bird with broken wings begins to sing. Can you just picture that? You might have been driving along and you see on the side of the road, maybe you even hit it, a bird, and the wings just dragging along. It can't fly now. You bring it home, make a little nest for it in some straw, and keep it food and water. And after several days, you wake up one morning with it singing. And you go, wow, it may be about ready to go back into the wild. Let it go. Each hour that you take your rest today, a tired mind is suddenly made glad. A bird with broken wings begins to sing. A stream long dry begins to flow again. The world is born again each time you rest. And hourly remember that you came to bring the peace of God into the world, that it might take its rest along with you. With each 5 minutes that you rest today, the world is nearer waking, and the time when rest will be the only thing there is comes closer to all worn and tired minds, too weary now to go their way alone. And they will hear the bird begin to sing, and see the stream begin to flow again, with hope reborn and energy restored to walk with lightened steps along the road that suddenly seems easy as they go. Why is it easy as they go? Because you've taken your rest in God and He's healed you. Like a bird with a broken wing beginning to sing again, and a dry spring that now begins to flow again. All that comes from just your willingness to take those pauses, but for 5 minutes every hour, and rest in God. And if you can't take 5, take whatever you can, but rest in God. Take a moment of respite or respite. You rest within the peace of God today and call upon your brothers from your rest to draw them to their rest along with you. You will be faithful to your trust today, forgetting no one, bringing everyone into the boundless circle of your peace, the holy sanctuary where you rest. Open the temple doors and let them come from far across the world, and near as well. Your distant brothers and your closest friends, bid them all enter here and rest with you. You rest within the peace of God today, quiet and unafraid. Each brother comes to take his rest and offer it to you. We rest together here, for thus our rest is made complete. And what we give today we have received already. Time is not the guardian of what we give today. We give to those unborn and those passed by, to every thought of God and to the mind in which these thoughts were born and where they rest. And we remind them of their resting place each time we tell ourselves, I rest in God. Wow, we're telling the whole world to join with us in our rest with God, as we do our rest with God. To me, this lesson is, like I said, it's my default lesson, but not that I use it that much for that purpose. But there are times when for some reason, I just can't remember, and I go, I'll just rest in God. Okay, it's one of the easier lessons in some sense, because you don't really have to do anything other than just rest in God. Cast your cares upon him, for he careth for you. I think it says that in 2 Peter. I'll try to find that and put it in the notes below. That certainly goes along with this idea. Take no care for anything, but cast your cares upon him, for he careth for you. I rest in God. Okay, well, let's go back and look in our text reading, and we're ready for, we're in chapter 13, the guiltless world. We're ready for Roman numeral 2, the guiltless Son of God. While you're turning there, let's see what all's going on around the world today. It's Adult Autism Day. I found all this on holidaysandobservances.com. Animal Crackers Day. Stouffer's Biscuit Company came up with the animal crackers back in 1871. I think they based it on the Barnum and Bailey Circus. College Student Grief Awareness Day. Get to Know Your Customer Day. Give Out Day. International Amateur Radio Day, which are your ham radio operators. International Day of Monuments and Sites. International Jugglers Day. International Pizza Cake Day. National Ask an Atheist Day. National Dare Day, Drug Abuse Resistance Education. National High Five Day. We'll give everybody a high five. We're glad to be resting in God today. High five for all you that joining with me and taking your rest in God. National Lineman Appreciation Day. National Newspaper Columnist Day. National Transfer Money to Your Daughter's Account Day. National Velociraptor Day, which was an Asian dinosaur that went extinct about 71 million years ago. Pet Owners Independence Day. Piñata Day. Since it's Piñata Day, we'll use the word in Spanish for peace, and that's paz. P-A-Z. Pronounced pass. So, Piñata Day. Poem in Your Pocket Day. Be ready to write a poem. Tell other people how about the rest you have in God. Support Teen Literature Day. Take Action for Libraries Day. And then in our edible landscaping, we've got the Gill Asian Persimmon. And it says that the Gill Asian Persimmon is our earliest ripening Asian persimmon. And this is out of edible landscaping. The small tree is a soft, when ripe variety with excellent flavor. Ripens here October to early November, space 6 to 8 foot, space 12-foot circles. Oh, it's zone 6 through 8 and space at 12-foot circles. The Gill Asian Persimmon, which it's also a Diospirus khaki, is its genus and species. And then in Permaculture for Beginners by Carrie Mitchell, we're in chapter 7, using mulch. Benefits of mulch. 1, preserve soil moisture by slowing evaporation. That alone in of itself is a good reason to have it. But it also adds organic matter and nutrients to the soil as the mulch decomposes, feeding soil, bacteria, fungi, worms, etc. You put mulch on about 2 inches thick, and what touches the ground stays moist and begins to decompose and feeds the soil. You don't want to mix it with the soil because that will pull all the nitrogen out of the soil. But sitting on the surface, the beneficial constituents work their way into the soil without robbing it of nitrogen. It restricts weeds. Let's see what else we have. Restricts weeds by, just by suffocating them, or starves them, starves the unwanted plants, which would be weeds, of light, causing them to die. And then 5, improves the visual appearance of the garden soil, particularly if you're one of those people that likes to put cardboard down to kill off the grass, and then garden, cut a little hole in the cardboard and plant your plants in. You can do that, but cardboard doesn't look too nice. But a lot of people put cardboard down, and then it's called lasagna gardening. Then you put a layer of maybe an inch or 2 of compost, and then 2 to 4 or even 6 inches of mulch on top of all that. And boy, you're good to go for a long time. You won't have to work that garden for a long time if you do that. Okay, you'll keep putting plants in it, but and add more mulch occasionally. Okay, let's go take a look now at our text reading. Let me get myself set up here just a minute. I rest in God. This is a day of peace. We rest in God. The guiltless Son of God in chapter 13, section 2. The ultimate purpose of projection is always to get rid of guilt. Yet characteristically, the ego attempts to get rid of guilt from its viewpoint only. For much as the ego wants to retain guilt, you find it intolerable, since guilt stands in the way of your remembering God, whose pull is so strong that you cannot resist it. On this issue, then, the deepest split of all occurs. For if you are to retain guilt as the ego insists, you cannot be you. Wow, follow the ego and you can't be you. Only by persuading you that it is you could the ego possibly induce you to project guilt and thereby keep it in your mind. Wow, when you start seeing guilt outside yourself, you're keeping guilt in your mind. And that's the ego's busyness of always seeing the problem somewhere else other than looking where it's really at, which is your own thoughts. Yet consider how strange a solution the ego's arrangement is. You project guilt to get rid of it, but you're actually merely concealing it. You do experience the guilt, but you have no idea why. On the contrary, you associate it with a weird assortment of ego ideals, which the ego claims you have failed. Yet you have no idea that you are failing the Son of God by seeing him as guilty. Believing you are no longer you, you do not realize that you are failing yourself. 3. The darkest of your hidden cornerstones holds your belief in guilt from your awareness. In that dark and secret place is the realization that you have betrayed God's Son by condemning him to death. You do not even suspect this murderous but insane idea lies hidden there, for the ego's destructive urge is so intense that nothing short of the crucifixion of God's Son can ultimately satisfy it. It does not know who the Son of God is because it is blind. Yet let it perceive guiltlessness anywhere, and it will try to destroy it because it is afraid. 4. Much of the ego's strange behavior is directly attributable to its definition of guilt. To the ego, the guiltless are guilty. Those who do not attack are its enemies, because by not valuing its interpretation of salvation, they are in an excellent position to let it go. They have approached the darkest and deepest cornerstone in the ego's foundation, and while the ego can withstand your raising all else to question, it guards this one secret with its life, for its existence depends on keeping this secret. So it is this secret that we must look upon, for the ego cannot protect you against truth, and in its presence, in truth's presence, the ego is dispelled. 5. In the calm light of truth, let us recognize that you believe you have crucified God's Son. You've not admitted to this terrible secret because you would still wish to crucify him if you could find him. Yet the wish has hidden him from you because it is very fearful, and so you are afraid to find him. You have handled this wish to kill yourself by not knowing who you are and identifying with something else. You have projected guilt blindly and indiscriminately, but you have not uncovered its source. For the ego does want to kill you, and if you identify with it, you must believe its goal is yours. Paragraph 6. I have said that the crucifixion is the symbol of the ego. When it was confronted with the real guiltlessness of God's Son, it did attempt to kill him. And the reason it gave was that guiltlessness is blasphemous to God. Don't you remember that's what they did with Jesus? They said, oh, you've made yourself one with God. You're blaspheming. We need to crucify you. Well, that same thing plays out with the ego all the time, through all ages. That's why we want to dismiss it. Look at its foundation, which is that guilt is real. To the ego is God. And guiltlessness must be interpreted as the final guilt that fully justifies murder. You do not yet understand that any fear you may experience in connection with this course stems ultimately from this interpretation. But if you will consider your reactions to it, you will become increasingly convinced that this is so. This course has explicitly stated that its goal for you is happiness and peace. Yet you are afraid of it. You have been told again and again that it will set you free. Yet you sometimes react as if it is trying to imprison you. You often dismiss it more readily than you dismiss the ego's thought system. To some extent, then, you must believe that by not learning the course, you are protecting yourself. And you do not realize that it is only your guiltlessness that can protect you. Your oneness with God, which is your guiltlessness. Paragraph 8, the atonement has always been interpreted as the release from guilt, and this is correct if it is understood. Yet even when I interpret it for you, you may reject it and do not accept it for yourself. You have perhaps recognized the futility of the ego and its offerings, but though you do not want them, you may not yet look upon the alternative with gladness. In the extreme, you are afraid of redemption and you believe it will kill you. Make no mistake about the depth of this fear, for you believe that in the presence of truth, you might turn on yourself and destroy yourself. And the last paragraph, paragraph 9. Little child, that you'll destroy yourself. Little child, this is not so. Your, in quotes, guilty secret is nothing. And if you will but bring it to the light will dispel it. Well, let's walk in the light as we rest in God. And then no dark cloud will remain between you and the remembrance of your Father, for you will remember His guiltless Son, who did not die because He is immortal. And you will see that you were redeemed with Him and have never been separated from Him. In this understanding lies your remembering, for it is the recognition of love without fear. There will be great joy in heaven on your homecoming, and the joy will be yours. Great joy, and it will be yours at your homecoming to realize that you're the guiltless Son of God, forever one with God, never separate. For the redeemed Son of Man is the guiltless Son of God, and to recognize Him is your redemption. Recognize who you are. What beautiful, beautiful words. I rest in God. Let's see. This is a day of peace. You rest in God. Yours is the rest of truth. In Him you have no cares and no concerns. You rest today, and as you close your eyes, sink into stillness. Let these periods of rest and respite reassure your mind that all its frantic fantasies were but dreams of fever that has passed away. Let it be still and thankfully accept its healing. No more fearful dreams will come now that you rest in God. No more fearful dreams will come now that you rest in God. Take time today to slip away from dreams and into peace. Each hour that you take your rest today, a tired mind is suddenly made glad. A bird with broken wings begins to sing. A stream long dry begins to flow again. The world is born again each time you rest. And hourly remember that you came to bring the peace of God into the world, that it might take its rest along with you. You rest within the peace of God today, quiet and unafraid. Each brother comes to take his rest and offer it to you. We rest together here, for thus our rest is made complete, and what we give today we have received already. Time is not the guardian of what we give today. We give to those unborn and those passed by, to every thought of God and to the mind in which these thoughts were born and where they rest. And we remind them of their resting place each time we tell ourselves, I rest in God. Well, let's do just that today. Let's spend our day in holy rest, holy resting in God. I rest in God. I rest in God. I rest in God. This is the day of peace. I rest in God. In Him I have no cares. My tired mind is suddenly made glad. A bird with broken wings begins to sing again. A stream long dry begins to flow again. I rest in God. I rest in God. I rest in God. This is the day of peace. I rest in God. In Him I have no cares. My tired mind is suddenly made glad. A bird with broken wings begins to sing again. A stream long dry begins to flow again. I rest in God. I rest in God. I rest in God. I rest in God. And since it's Pinata Day, let's use our Spanish word for peace, which is paz. Paz. I rest in God. Paz.